All right, so let's get started. How are we doing today? Good? Good? Awesome, awesome. Well, welcome everyone. I'm really glad that all of you could join us here today. My name is Akash Sapru. I'm the Assistant Professor of Design Thinking and Innovation here at the Heinz Institute for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. Um, it's actually a really good opportunity for all of us here today to learn from the experience of someone who's had a creative dream and has actually created a business out of it. So with that, I want all of us to give a round of applause to Hillary. All right, so Hillary Millman has been a marketing and communications consultant. She's been doing that for over 12 years now. She's worked with both businesses and non-business organizations. Uh, 3 years ago, she also became part-time director of the Association of Development Offices, a nonprofit membership organization. Prior to that, she was the director of communications at the Business Council of Westchester and also an adjunct professor at the College of Westchester. So let's begin today's fireside chat. Good. All right. So Hillary, it's often said that the life trajectory of entrepreneurs, a lot of it has to do with their background, where they came from. Help us walk through your background, like upbringing, where you were born, things like that.
Hi, everybody. So I grew up here in Westchester, a little further north, along a couple of the different river towns, and I went to undergrad upstate New York, SUNY Oswego, and then waited a little while and did my graduate degree when somebody else who was employing me was going to chip in and pay for a little bit of it at Pace University in the city later in my 20s. In terms, what was other than up? What was the
So just general upbringing, any influences that you had growing up?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to entrepreneurship, my father was an entrepreneur, and I'm not so much sure if that was like that entrepreneurial spirit or just the fact that he didn't play well with others, but definitely saw from a young age the benefit. And he would always say things about kind of getting to make his own schedule and determine his own future and things like that. I so I was exposed to that from a young age, but interestingly, I wasn't driven toward it because I thought it looked like a lot of work and a lot of hustle. And I remember, he was always, not in a bad way, in a good way, chasing a new opportunity. So I think when I was younger, I wasn't, as we don't pay attention to our parents when we're younger, I wasn't paying attention to that so much. But now that I'm doing the same thing, and we'll talk more about how I ended up here, I see that I'm kind of mirroring his experience. So that probably had a lot to do with it. At the time, all through that time that my dad was running his own business, and actually at the age of 82, you just talked about someone who's 75. At the age of 82, my dad still has a few clients. So he's had his business, his entire adult life and has not quite let go of it yet. My mom was working for a nonprofit organization. So I definitely had those double influences.
Excellent, excellent. So what about formal education? Did that have a role in inspiring you towards these creative endeavors?
Yes, I mean, growing up, I definitely was always better at things that were writing related. So when I went away to college, my parents let me, for whatever reason, major in creative writing because I thought I was going to be a novelist. I'm 45. I still think I'm going to be a novelist, or hope I'm going to be a novelist. But when I was at school, one of the things that you do in a creative writing program is you write something and then it goes out to everyone in that program for them to kind of debate it and ask you questions about it and for you to defend it. Same thing when I got my master's degree. You write these research papers and then you have to defend them. So I think a lot of that kind of honed my innate ability to win spelling bees into being a good communicator. So there were obviously, many, many things I got out of my education. And I'd say also one of them is that right away when I went away to school, for undergrad, I was invited to, I was at, in the college town, but someone who was running the English department said, hey, the high school wants to do a book club, and they don't have anybody in the school who can run it after school. And they asked for a college student, and they were looking for volunteers. And I said, oh, that sounds cool. I'll do that. So that was really like the first kind of leadership opportunity I was given. And I still surprise myself when I volunteer to do things, but I surprised myself by volunteering to do that. So I'd say some of what I got out of school was the actual education, but obviously a lot of it was just opportunities to do other things and see that I liked that. So I did that book club. I was 19 and I really loved kind of being in charge of something like that. So that was where I got the bug, I think.
Excellent. So you started in Better Words about 12 years ago.
Yes.
Can you share with us your professional experiences before that, what you did before you started in Better Words?
Yeah, so for a hot minute, I was a preschool teacher. And even there, I was I was starting to kind of edit all of the newsletters that all of the other preschool teachers were sending out to the parents. So even there, the thing that I really loved was kind of coming to the top. I got my first job related to my degree when I was in my early 20s working for a small publisher that published these little like getting to know an area, like getting to know peak scale magazines and some other things. And I was a reporter for them. So I got to go out and do really cheesy interviews, like interview the school principal about the new initiative, things like that. A new jeweler opened in town, and it was a lot of fun. And I worked my way up through there. I started as an assistant editor and got promoted a few times and really enjoyed that. When that business closed, they were sold, I was laid off. I took a job, just a flat out editing job, which was like 10 hours a day, nose down at your desk, copy editing. And that whereas where I very, very quickly figured out that that was not the part of the previous job that I liked. So I like writing, I like communications, but I definitely need that community contact and that outreach. So I knew I had the skill, but it wasn't until I tried to only do one little piece of the job that I realized I didn't like it. So I was very lucky to land a position at the Business Council of Westchester after that experience. But I really only had that one kind of real job. Then I went to the Business Council where I was the director of communications for I think 6 or 7 years.
And what were your responsibilities there as director of communications?
Everything. So it was communications and programs. It was a membership organization, like a really big chamber of commerce, but for like business development and advocacy and networking. So I ran all of the communications to the members and the community, email blasts. Back then, I was just kind of like, I set up our first Twitter account, if you want to kind of do the math there, our first Facebook account. That stuff was just coming out. So any knowledge made me look like a genius, which was great. I have not kept up all that well since then. But so established those things, did all the email blasts, and then programming. So designing programming that was interesting to members. They had a lot of subgroups. So people who were in human resources profession, or so certain professions, or people who were sole proprietors got together in individual groups, and I managed that programming, planned some trade shows, things like that.
Excellent. So if you were to relate to us the origin story of In Better Words, what does that story look like?
The story is actually a little embarrassing to be tell in an entrepreneurial setting. So I didn't do much to prepare, and I advise you not to do what I did. But during the time I worked at the Business Council, I finished my graduate degree. One of the things that my parents always instilled in me is to kind of be cultivating a plan B. And also, when you first start out, you're not always making so much money. So I had always kind of wanted to go to grad school for just whatever reason. I liked being a student. I liked the school setting. But my parents really were saying, if you get your graduate degree, maybe you can teach. It'll be another thing to put on your resume. You're young. So I finished that. I started teaching part-time at night at the College of Westchester, the things that I was already good at: English, marketing, stuff like that, communications. And then people, I would write about them for the Business Council's newsletter, and they would come back to me and say, hey, that was really cool what you wrote about us. Can we hire you on the side to do some of our marketing? So after a while, I was teaching and doing a lot of that side work, and I thought, ooh, I wonder if I could be self-employed. But it was just this kind of like little feeling. And then it was just a random turn of events. There were a handful of people at the organization who were had been there for a long time, and they were all like they were all older than me, and they were all retiring, and new people were coming in. And I was like, well, I want to leave. They're all leaving. So I won't say on a whim, but with not very much preparation, I just said, I'm gonna do this. So I contacted a friend who was an accountant. They helped me set up an LLC. And with just that little bit of side work and a few connections who were feeding it to me, I quit my job and launched my business. It was a while before I made any money.
And that's the case with a lot of entrepreneurs, actually.
Yes.
So absolutely. And if you were to describe to us your business today, like what does it look like? What's the value proposition? What are the day-to-day functions of the business?
I want to back up before I answer that, or with another answer. When I first left the business council, I thought I'll be a I'll be a writer. I'll do marketing copy and newsletter copy. And then one of the people that I went out to said, cool, we pay our writers $20 an hour. And I went, uh-oh, like I can't pay rent on $20 an hour. At this point I had, and I had graduate degree student loans. I had a car payment. So, and I was also doing some writing for some publications like Westchester Magazine, which they were paying like cents per word. So I thought I need to offer some sort of other service. And it took me a few years to figure out what that was, and quite frankly, to be qualified to do it. But after a few years in, and still to this day, so it's marketing, anything related to a problem that communications can solve or an opportunity that communications can create. So number one is any kind of marketing material that you see. So an organization has a website, a brochure, they're sending you a postcard, any of that, I do some. I don't do the graphic design. I have a partner who does that. But any of those things, I create the strategy. So who is the audience you need to find? Where will you find them? And how will you get their attention? That kind of thing. Over the years, I've also gotten involved in some other problem solving. So a business owner will say, I've been trying to hire for this position for 6 months and I can't get anybody in here. Can you take a look at the job ad and see if it's written well? And this is a real story. I take a look at the job ad, and it was very geared toward what the business needs and wants. We want someone who does this, this, and this. This is your job. This is what we need. This is what you have to have. And I thought, this is written, with a kind of like selfish point of view. So it's definitely a job seekers market right now. So if you want to hire someone good, you have to let them know why they should want to work at your company. What kind of culture is there? What are the benefits? You have to ask them, so I said to him, I said in a much nicer way than I'm saying to you, this is terrible and written very selfishly. This is someone I've been working with for a long time. I said, is this how you talk to people in a job interview? Silence. And I said, can I see your interview questions? And he said, no. So I said, well, why don't we back up and take a look at this whole process? I said, when you interview someone, are you asking them what it is that, what their goals are, like where they see themselves in a few years, what they want to get out of a job? He wasn't. And we made that change. He ended up hiring some other consultants who really are, have that HR skill. Like I don't get into like the legalities of what you can and can't ask and all of that. But I did bring to his attention that even the questions he was asking were not communicating the right message. So I do some social media, anything related to, there's the marketing part, and then there's that communications coaching part. I also have some clients who are nonprofit. I help them with their fundraising, with their legislative advocacy, trying to get government funding. I help them market their programs to people in need. And also at a nonprofit, you typically have lots of staff who are communicating. They didn't all get that creative writing degree. So sometimes I'll do workshops for them with some communications best practices so that they don't have to hire me to do everything, but I can, teach them some of the basics of the skills so they can execute without having to pay me to do everything over and over.
Excellent. And that leads me to this question. Like to you, are there any like principles of effective communication, some principles that you follow or would like to, basically, because we have an audience where students, again, that's a skill set that we would like to develop in our students as well. Being effective communicators, whether it's verbal communication, written communication. So if there are any principles you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. One that I talk about over and over is thinking about your audience first. So when you are writing, when you're writing something, consider not so much like what you want to say, but what the other person needs to hear. So first of all, what do they need to hear to understand what the heck you're talking about? So do they have context? Because you're in your head thinking, I got to tell so-and-so about this thing, but make sure you're bringing them into the conversation at the right point so that they have enough context to understand you. And when it comes to, when you're marketing something, it's always about a value proposition. So we're not talking about, I'm brilliant, my company is the best, my product is the best, I'm so smart, because that doesn't get someone to buy something or to engage with you. If you think about the way that you're marketed to, any, clothing, body products, anything like that, an experience, they're getting you to think about your problems and how this product or service can solve your problem, or something that you'd like to do, or some way that you'd like to be. And someone is saying to you, I can help you get there. I can help you fix this. So good marketing always focuses on the audience. Be a smart consumer also, and understand when you are being sold to in that way. You'll see a lot of it once you start paying attention to that. You'll see a lot of things that say, you deserve travel, you deserve this, and that marketing drives me crazy. But also is just a way. It's trying to, it's all psychology, so it's getting into the minds of the people. Same if you're marketing for or messaging for a nonprofit. It's what does someone need to hear in order to say, I'm going to give up my time or my money to contribute to this. They need to know that, there are people or animals or whatever it is who are in a certain situation, and that their help makes all the difference in relieving a burden, creating opportunity, whatever it is. So my number one principle is always think about the audience first before you think about what you want to say. And I mean, if you get that down, I think that's kind of the most important thing. And I still have people who are older than me and wiser and have been around longer. Do not put anything in a text message or an email that you don't want on a billboard. And I really can't, I just can't say that enough, or say it more firmly, is that and even as you, get into your career, if you have to have a difficult conversation, do it verbally if you can. Just be really careful, never assume that the recipient of an email is the only person who's going to see it. And one thing that I do is when I'm thinking about how I want to write something, I always take the person's name out of the to field and I write the email, and then I add it back in so it doesn't get sent by accident. But the number of disasters, I could get a panel of 10 colleagues up here to tell you about the god awful, embarrassing things they did by sending an email to the wrong person, saying something inappropriate, not realizing someone was CC'd, or that it would transfer to someone else. So just be really careful about what you put in writing.
Excellent. So through your business, you're serving both for-profit and non-profit organizations. Are there different strategies that you deploy when you're working with these two very different kinds of clients?
I'll say one thing is that now we are getting to a point, which is a good point, that we are looking at nonprofits more in the same way we would look at a business. And that's how we should be looking at them. They have CEOs, they have executive staff. The people who work in nonprofits need to earn money and deserve to earn money just the way people in for-profits do. I don't, if any of you have heard of the documentary Uncharitable, it really addresses the way that nonprofits are viewed versus for profits. But nonprofits are tasked with solving the most difficult problems in the world and the most important problems in the world because government can't. And we often think of as for-profit businesses, take a chance, spend some money, invest. It's okay if it doesn't work out. Like, you'll try something else. I'll give you a loan. And then we turn around to our nonprofits who are doing this really, really important work, not just inventing like a more comfortable legging, but like saving lives. And we say to them, no, you have to work on the like skimpiest budget you possibly can and pay the people who work there who are doing this really important work the absolute least that they can possibly live on, and maybe not even that much. So my answer is the work is a little different because I'm not, I'm writing fundraising, I'm convincing people to donate, we're advertising free services, but really the principles are the same. Is that when I communicate, so the job is think about who the audience is, whatever it is. So I am marketing a program. Like, one of the things right now is a scholarship for childcare. So I'm thinking about who the audience is for that. I'm looking for moms, typically like in their 20s or 30s, or their moms who will tell them about the scholarship. And I'm thinking, okay, where am I going to find those people? So what social media are they on? Where are they shopping? What are they reading? How am I going to find them? And what do I need them to hear in order to get them to like pick up the phone, scan the QR code? What's the action I want them to take? So that's it. And I'm doing the same thing. So I have a client who sells insurance, one who sells commercial cleaning, and then a whole bunch of nonprofits. It's all about getting that message out. So do I care a little more about the nonprofits getting their message out? Yeah, sometimes. But I'm very lucky that the for-profits I work with give a ton back to nonprofits. They serve on boards, they volunteer, they donate. They have nonprofit clients that they help support and give discounts to. And they're creating jobs. And one of the things that we desperately need is a way for more people to earn a good living and maybe need less nonprofit services. So there's a really great synergy between business and nonprofit in our community, and working with both of them lets me help facilitate some of those synergies. So a lot of my clients for and nonprofit support each other and work together.
Excellent. So you're clearly a proponent of effective communication, and something that goes in line with effective communication is this idea of networking, especially for professional success. What advice do you have for our students here in terms of networking and building those long-term relationships with folks out there?
Um, keeping your eyes open for opportunities, obviously, to meet someone, to get a business card, to connect with them. I don't know if you have LinkedIn yet, but that's a way as you move into your career. That's kind of the way we're keeping in touch now, where we meet someone, we exchange information, we connect on LinkedIn, maybe we go to coffee. That's typically what it is. And social media does become a good way. So I'll tell you that most of the professional, like my colleagues, they're all connected on LinkedIn, on Facebook sometimes, and also on Instagram. They're following each other, professional friends. And so the lines there between personal and professional are very blurred. I ended up getting a second Facebook page, and so I have 2 Instagrams and 2 Facebooks, so that I can have the one where I just have like my, the crazy family members with the uncle who comments God knows what, and then one where, and I can rant about politics if I want. And then I have an account on each where I accept all the professional requests. And I still post about personal stuff there because people do business with, and people refer people and make introductions for people who they know, like, and trust. And I'm stealing that phrase from someone, people they know, like, and trust. So being connected on social media is a way that people can feel like they're getting to know you a little bit. And there's nothing nefarious about that, like, oh, they only do business with me if they like me, but it's just a way of the world that we feel some connection to someone and we want to help them or make introductions for them. When it comes to actual in-person networking, I see a lot of faux pas still. I'd say whether you're comfortable or not, like one of the best tools for that is really to just go with the idea like, I'm going to walk in this room and see who I can learn about and how I can help them. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to ask other people what they do. Oh, that's cool. Like, who are your customers? How did you start that business? Why did you start it? What do you like about it? Anything, anything, is there anything that you're struggling with? Maybe I know somebody. So, number one, like, nobody wants you to walk up to them and tell them, and talk to them for half an hour straight about yourself and walk away. And everyone is a little awkward when it comes to networking. So I think a great thing is just, and in life and in business, especially if you want to be an entrepreneur, is how can I help other people solve their problems? What can I learn about them? How can I be of use? I mean, if you're starting a business, you're solving a problem, how can I be of use? And I think if you behave like that on a personal level, be genuine, have some personality, like nobody's a robot. I mean, I can go through my LinkedIn and tell you, all sorts of things about my LinkedIn connections and who I can make a semi inappropriate joke with and who's a little more rigid. But like we have there, you meet so many people that they have to be able to get to know you on a genuine level in order for you to make an impression. So don't be afraid within the confines of professionalism. Don't be afraid to be yourself.
Excellent. So clearly you've had so many successes professionally, but again, I'm pretty sure there would be, a long trail of, challenges and obstacles along the way. Can you share some instances where things did not go as planned for you? And more importantly, how did you perceive those challenges and how did you bounce back if you failed in
Yeah.
those challenges?
I'd say, more that I can think of off the top of my head a little earlier. One of them was when I got that first email saying, that I could spend 5 days on something and I'd get paid $140 or whatever it was. And I thought, uh-oh, I can't make a living. And, that was a lesson for me. So I kept doing what I was intending to do for the time being, but immediately was kind of starting to cultivate other options. Like, okay, how can I still do this, but make some more money? So that was obviously like a very early setback. And I'd say that even once I started, getting more clients, I had one thing happen. So you go, if someone is looking for a marketing person, you go, you have a meeting with them, and typically what'll happen is you'll hear why they want to hire a marketing person. Nobody knows about us, or, whatever, or we're launching something new. And you say, okay, these are the ways I can help you. You toss around a couple of ideas and you give them a proposal. So back in the day, I would spend like 10 hours on a proposal with like every single idea I had ever thought of and all the things I wanted to do for them and what it would cost and whatever. And I would spend a lot of time. In hindsight, that was like a marketing plan I was creating for them. And I should have been charging just for that. But so then what eventually happened is I created that document as a proposal, and someone took that and said, cool, we're going to have somebody who already works here do it. So they took all of my ideas in the meeting and that proposal and decided to run with it. Now, that's not great behavior. Something like that really doesn't happen very often. It's, in fact, never happened again. But it was a lesson for me just in terms of thinking about, like, what am I giving away and what am I charging for and what are my expectations? One of the things about that interaction was that was also someone who I didn't know. 99% of my clients have come to me through a relationship I already had, and it's someone who knows them really well, and they would never do that. But I am in a unique situation where all of my clients are kind of already in a tight-knit business community. If you're going out into the larger world to do something entrepreneurial, you have to kind of think those things through. And sometimes you just won't until it happens to you. Okay, lesson learned. Don't spend 10 hours on the proposal, give outlines. But I also decided that I was going to continue to be generous in those pitch meetings, and because one of the reasons I was getting work is people were very impressed with the ideas that I would come up with kind of off the top of my head, and that I was generous and enthusiastic. Not everyone hires me when they hear those ideas, but I'm also leaving them with a good impression of me. So maybe they went, I'm a sole proprietor. So maybe they decided, and I don't do everything. And that's another piece of advice is, stick to what you're good at and bring someone else in to do what is not your strength. So they may say, okay, well, we needed a little more PR and that's not what you do, whatever. But I went into that meeting. I was enthusiastic. I was engaged. I gave them some great ideas. I said, you can have them, and left them with a positive impression of me. So someone else may say, hey, I need XYZ. And they'll say, hey, I didn't hire her, but Hillary was great. Go ahead. So that, and then just some, things that probably would not end up applying to you, but just paying attention to things during the course of business that you learn the hard way. So I had something where I had given a price for a project. I draft it, and then they say, okay, we're going to send this to the whole board of directors, and they're going to weigh in, and they're going to send you back 15 different emails with all of their ideas and suggestions. And I thought, uh-oh, I didn't anticipate all of those people contributing to the project on the back end, me having to wrangle all their opinions, decide whose opinion to listen to. So I learned right then to ask in a meeting, how many people are going to be involved in this project? How many of them, will I get all the edits back in one? And again, that's not something that might necessarily be directly related, but these are things that, I guess the point is, there's so much that you can't possibly anticipate, and you just have to cope with it in the moment and then think, okay, I'm going to make an adjustment. You always have to be willing to make, and to pay attention, learn a lesson, and make an adjustment.
Excellent. In that response, I actually, I could pick up cues of what we define as the entrepreneurial mindset, and that's how we try to conceptualize entrepreneurship here at the Heinz Institute. We just don't see it entrepreneurship as a profession; we see it more like a mindset. So I wanted to have your perspective on what does the entrepreneurial mindset mean to you.
I'd say, in short, just kind of always be cultivating opportunities and thinking about ways to be innovative, even if you're working for someone or within an institution. So, keeping an open mind about, is there an opportunity for me to step up and take a leadership role here? If there's something that I don't like or an opportunity I see, can I solve it? Can I offer to help? Can I start a new whatever, a new initiative within a department or within a business? So I think, we just always want to, and some of that I think is innate to people. Like if you're here and you're in this anyway, you probably have a little bit of that mindset anyway, but just to be kind of cultivating opportunities when you have the opportunity to meet someone, again, do that, make your impression, get contact information, make some sort of effort to keep in touch. I had an intern when I was probably 28. She's back every 3 or 4 years. She pops up on my LinkedIn and, oh, hey, can you write me a recommendation, or I'm doing this or something like that. She's done, I barely remember her from when she interned for me, but she's done a really crack job of checking in every year or two so that she and I have kind of kept in touch. I don't know in person if I know her, if I fell over her, but at this point, so just kind of keep that up and be thinking, all along the way. I like that, the idea of cultivating a plan B, especially in entrepreneurship, but in everything. Like, what are you going to do if plan A doesn't work out? Either fully or all the way, or part of the way. Like, how are you going to retool if this next thing doesn't work? And if it doesn't work altogether, what else can you do? What are you good at? What are your interests? And that to me has been like the driving force, going back to how and why I started my business, is that this was something I was good at. I saw a need and I saw a way to match what I was good at and what I liked doing and how I liked to spend my time with something that other people needed. And the fact that it was filling a need makes me feel like there's some meaning and value in the work, particularly on the nonprofit side.
Excellent. I think that's one of the major ways in which entrepreneurs actually discover opportunities out there, identifying needs. That's why we emphasize that, entrepreneurs go out there in the natural environment, observe the environment, the problems that people are facing, right? Only then you can create value once you have identified the problems to begin with. So thank you for highlighting that. I also wanted to ask you, in today's day and age, now the hot topic of the day is AI. how is that impacting your profession specifically? Do you see any changes, and what's the way forward for the profession?
I mean, it's really all anybody's talking about. So, I mean, so number one, there's a lot of fear out there about AI. I will say there are, in the adult world, there are people who are like, on every, I'd say, inch of the spectrum in terms of excited about what it can do and living in deep, deep dread about watching Terminator when they were young and thinking that it's going to take over. But I'd say for me, AI is really useful. There are some areas where I think it's going to, help. So maybe I would be upset right now if I was only a copywriter, because I think that AI is really opening up that for a lot of people, feeling like maybe they don't need to hire someone to do that. My opinion is that I mean, so far I can always tell when ChatGPT wrote something. So I am advising people that they do need to still heavily edit that and only use AI for ideas. But it's in everything that we're doing. I mean, even when you search now on social media, like those searches are, AI is informing them. But for me, I really hope students don't use it too much, because I think that the critical thinking skills that you employ while you're a student are so, so important for the rest of your life. But for someone old like me who's tired and has two jobs, AI makes my life a lot easier. So, for instance, this is technically part time, and I run a nonprofit half time. And we have an event every month, and a lot of times I'll have a panel of speakers. So, just like you had to do for me today, I have to come up with all the questions for the facilitator to ask the speakers, anticipate their answers, then come up with a follow up question. I'm tired. ChatGPT does all of that for me. I put something in about that, in there. I tell them about the audience and the topic, and ChatGPT will come up with something. So instead of spending 3 hours on that, I still spend half an hour fixing it up, because it doesn't come out, you know, one thing that it will never do is replace the 20 years of experience I have in my local business community with the people who are doing business here and as a consumer. It's, in my head, it's a robot. It's still a robot. It's still a computer. So that can't be replaced. So I don't feel threatened, but I think that we have opportunity to use it and make our lives easier, and have it free us up to do more of the stuff that's fun. Most people hate copywriting. So I can do that quickly. And one of the things that I have to do is cultivate relationships for my business and for my nonprofit. That gives me more time to actually go out and have coffee with people or go to a networking event. That's really how I need to be spending my time. So I see it as a tool to help me free up my time to do more of the fun stuff.
Excellent, excellent. And here at the Heinz Institute, we have students who are bustling with creativity. Some of them do have intentions of starting their own business. Some of them are actually running businesses right now. For folks who are kind of, who are trying to decide, what are the next steps we should take, do you have any advice for them, since you've already been there?
To start, who are folks who have already started or
No,
are thinking,
who are thinking about, who
who
have
are
great
thinking about it.
ideas, but just haven't taken those first steps.
I guess is just, really is like to assess if you have that passion for solving the problem you've identified or creating that opportunity, and don't do what I did, have a little bit of a plan in place. But I think, it's definitely, theoretically, it's a little easier to take risks like that when you are younger or when you're in school. I think that you probably have a lot of resources available to you here that you could take advantage of, that when you are older, you kind of have to cultivate on your own. Like, you don't necessarily have the built-in network that you do when you're in college. So I think it's great for everyone to try it. I think that being an entrepreneur doesn't mean that you can't have a regular job. I know very few people, by the way, who don't now or didn't at one point have more than one thing going on. I mean, I like that plan B, but everyone, and I'm always surprised. I mean, I have someone I've been working with for 11 years in a nonprofit, and I just found out that she's an event planning business on the side in another state. 11 years. I had no idea because she doesn't do the type of events that I would go to. But so many people are doing more than one thing. So I'd say, regardless of what your eventual path will be, don't think that if you do this you can't do something else, or you can only do this. I say give it a shot. If it turns into something great, and if it doesn't, so what? You'll do something else.
Excellent. So I just have one last question, and then we'll move on to the Q&A with the audience. So looking to the future, like what are some of the new things that you're aspiring for professionally, for your company, but just in general, what are some of your career aspirations as of now?
I'd say two things. I think I'm not one of those, like, if you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life people, because there's no job that is going to make me feel like that. Like, if I could just garden all day, that's what I would do. So I think for me, it's really important to find like meaning in the work that I do. So always making sure that I'm pursuing things that make me feel like I'm making a difference. And it doesn't have to be like in the world, but, making a difference for that business, that nonprofit, the people they serve, that I can feel good about it. My answer now, when I go to a networking event and people say, well, like, who do you work with? Because I work with so many different types of clients. My answer now is I only work with nice people. I want to spend time around people who are kind, who are smarter than me, who are uplifting. So I am, my, urethral focus is on spending time around the people that I want to be around and doing things that have meaning for me. On a more specific level, I don't want to sit at the computer all day copywriting anymore, because not everyone is using ChatGPT, and I still do some of that. So I'm making an effort to spend more time out in the community, like I just said. So using tools that help me do that, but also morphing my business into more communications coaching so that I can teach people what I do and spend less time doing it myself, and marketing coaching, workshops, things like that. I may go back to teaching. I'd like to spend more time talking to people and being out in the community and less time in front of the computer.
Excellent. So now we'll open the floor for questions from the audience. Who has the first question? They'll give you the mic.
I was just curious if you have like a large. I was curious if you have a large team like for your business. Like, do you have a lot of people that do what you do, or is it just by yourself?
Just me. So I'm by myself. I've been a sole proprietor for all of the 12 years, but there are a lot of things I don't do, like graphic design, and then some things I do, like I'll say PR light. So if somebody just needs a press release, like they hired someone or they got a new board member, I do that. But if they're having a grand opening, a ribbon cutting, that's beyond my skill and interest, quite frankly, my interest. So I have a bunch of people who I partner with who do things that I don't do. So I have a graphic designer that I've been working with even since before I quit she's one of the people who was hiring me before I quit my job. And we work really well together. And I'm glad you asked that, because it's, depending on what business you're in, it is important to have people like that who you can refer to when there's something that you don't do, and vice versa, for business development. And also because it makes me a resource to someone if they say, oh, can you XYZ? Maybe it's HR related, and I said, oh, now we're getting into the legal stuff. I'm not comfortable with that. But if I can refer them to someone who can solve their problem, I'm still a resource to them, even though I didn't do it. So it helps me, just again, be helpful to my clients. Sorry.
So you talked about it took a while for your business to gain a profit. Was there a certain moment or a certain something that helped you get to profit for your business?
I honestly, I think some of it was confidence in how much I was like, that there was value in what I was doing and how much I was charging. So trying to, again, because I didn't have like such a firm business plan when I started, I hadn't thought through so much, like, what am I offering? What is it worth? What will people pay for it? So one of the ways that I learned those things was by like those partners I work with. Some of them say, you know, me seeing what they were charging for their services and what they were worth, and also just building up a portfolio. So having enough work behind me that I could show to people gave me the confidence to charge more and to be more aggressive about getting new clients. So I could say, you know, now I've done this 4 times. They liked it. I know I'm good at it. Here's a couple samples. Here are people who have worked with me. So I think for me, it was building up the confidence, learning from other people what they were doing, and then feeling like I had some stuff to show for myself. But that's going to be like really, you know, so different for every person.
So you kind of answered this, but my question is kind of similar because obviously it took a while before you made like a good profit with your company. But how did you deal with that mentally? Because obviously that's like a very scary thing, and it's unknown in the beginning whether you're going to make this profit or not. So how did you stay confident throughout the transition phase?
It was you know, it was really hard. When I think back, I always joke, one of the people who I refer work to now, when I wasn't making money, really did me the favor of feeding me all of his copywriting. He does PR and I don't do so much that. So he really kind of like did me the favor of feeding me all of his copywriting work, which I did not enjoy, and it was not paying very well. But I think it's part of that is being willing to, you know, to have a side job or do something else in the meantime, is like put your ego away, is part of it. Is like, so that person who I mentioned before who has the event planning business, she also works at the Cheesecake Factory. So this is someone, you know, she wants to be able to put her kid through college. I'm guessing that's probably why, wants to be able to own a home. So I think part of it is, you know, you'll see people who not only look successful on the surface, but are successful, but not everything is exactly as it seems. So a lot of people are working more than one job. Someone helped them buy their house or whatever it is. So like one word of caution is always like when you're going and looking at, you know, what success looks like, it looks like all different things. Most of us still have no idea what we're doing, even after we've been doing it for 20 years. And just, you know, put your ego aside, try really hard. But if it's so like, if rent is on the line, which it was for me, do something else in your spare time to make that money so that it's not, so that it's not, eat or don't eat if you can, because it's really tough. And I still don't have the stomach for it. I mean, I still, every time I'm going to spend like any money that I don't have to spend, and I've been doing this for 12 years. I live by myself. I pay, all my expenses are on me. So there's not a safety net. And that's the price of freedom. So I get to make my own schedule. I am available when my nieces need something. I can, all of these I can be here in the middle of the day. I can wear what I want most of the time. But on the other end of that, I will always have that entrepreneurial fear because I did not scale my business. So some of you hopefully will scale your businesses and you'll be making so much money that you don't have to worry about that. But I've really focused on just making a living and having my freedom. That's my choice. So I will always kind of have that little bit of anxiety, and you learn to see what you can live with. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, how are you able to manage both your part-time and your full-time job, as well as being able to have your personal life?
Personal life. So really what happened was when I got the opportunity to take on the executive director role for the nonprofit, I think that was right after the pandemic. So work was a little slower, and I made the decision to let go of some of my consulting work in order to do the nonprofit thing, because that is steady income and just talking about that. So that was a choice, again, of not so much like putting down ego, but you could look at it like that, at saying like, I'm going to stop pursuing some of these opportunities, because when you have clients, you're always kind of out looking for new clients. I'm lucky to have a steady stable. So what I decided was I wasn't going to pursue new clients or project work, just going to keep with the clients I have for the most part, and then do this nonprofit thing for some steady income. So theoretically, I'm only doing each one half time, but there's definitely some give and take. I do not work on the weekends. So you'll not hear a lot of other people say that. And maybe people who do work on the weekends probably have a lot more money than me. But I am someone who like really places value on like work boundaries. And I have a very high maintenance extended family and a lot of things. I like to spend time outside. So I keep pretty much not a 9 to 5 schedule, more like a 7 to 5. I work during the week, mostly during business hours. I respond to emails at night, sometimes on the weekends, but I do not work on the weekends. And I just don't. I just left my office job, my 9 to 5 office job, and just said, I'm going to keep doing that. And again, maybe that's why I'm still, careful about every dollar, but it's important to me to have that time. And all of you will have to decide what's important to you.
Thank you.
It's that mental health right there.
Balance.
Hi.
Hi.
So my question is, how important is it to know like latest trends, and how do you stay updated with latest trends, like in both like a nonprofit and then also your?
It's horrible. It's the worst. It's like, so number one, you're always going to feel like you're behind because it's not possible to, to keep up on everything. So number one is like, just think about what's important to the people you're working with or you want to work with. And because you can very easily get overwhelmed feeling like you're out of the loop. So number one is a lot of the things that people, like you'll feel like, oh, this person knows all of this about that. They don't. They took a webinar. That's all they did is they took a webinar and now they're taking the talking points from their webinar. So focus on the things that are genuinely important and do some, do the learning on your own, between YouTube, webinars, things like that. You can do that for almost no money. There's so much free information online. And that's really, I have had to make decisions about like, how deep into the social media am I going to get? Like, do I want to let go of some of that and say, yeah, your college grad can do that part? And I've been confident enough to do that and say, you know what? I'm not going to learn the ins and outs of Instagram Reels. Like, I don't know how to do any of that. I'm not, I desperately don't want to do it. So it's a little bit like, I have enough business, which is a privilege that I did work hard for, that I don't have to necessarily do that. But what I do have is kind of like the business savvy. So like I will have a younger person at a client's office who's like, they're going to create something like a video related to a TikTok trend. I am the person who can look at that and I'm very familiar. I spend way too much time on TikTok. I know all the trends. So the executive director there is never going to know like what that TikTok trend means or like how it's relevant. But I also know if it's appropriate to our audience and appropriate for business. And I say politically, I don't mean like election politically, but like politically appropriate. It's not going to get anyone upset. It's relevant. So there's a place for me. And part of what I've had to do is figure out where that place is going to be for me as things change. So I am digging in on AI a little bit because it does some of what I do and everyone has to use it. I can't be left behind on that, but I'm not digging in on the social media technology, like the video, the CapCut, all of that. I just don't want to. So it's a decision every single time a new thing comes out. Do I have to go in this direction or is it okay for me to let this go? It's stressful.
You mentioned earlier about how people all define their success differently. At what point did you decide that you were successful, or what do you define as success?
I think so. There's I think it's an Emerson quote, to leave the world a bit better. That's how you define success, healthy child, garden patch. I think for me, if I feel like someone or something is better off, then that's success for me. When it comes to business, I will never feel like I've arrived. And maybe that is like at the end, that like the crux of the entrepreneurial spirit, but like I never feel, so I've made a difference for people. I've helped people. I am asked by people I respect to like help them or advise them. That is definitely a sign of success. I have earned the respect of people who I respect, so that's a sign of success. For some people it's financial. If I wanted to be that, I'm going to be waiting a really long time. So I think it's different for everyone. It's about what's important, what your values are, like what's important to you to feel like I got here. And you can do some of that in advance. Like, how will I know when I've gotten to this place that I need to get to feel like this was worth it? Because, like even, this is sort of relevant, but there's this, people will get divorced after a 20-year marriage. And it's like, oh, your marriage failed. And some people turn around, no, say I had a successful 20-year relationship and now it's over. So you can start a business, run it, and that business can close. And you don't have to consider that business a failure because you got to do something that you wanted to do for 2, 5, or 10 years. So if I take a job tomorrow, it's not because my business failed. It's done. It ran its course. I'm tired, whatever. So I think you just have to think of that for yourself. I will share that I serve on a board of directors, and someone contacted me the other day and said, would you join the executive committee and be the vice chair of the board of governors? I'm like, what? What? So I called my mother. I'm 45. I called my mom. I said, Mom, they want me to be the VP of the board of governors. I said, don't they know I'm just a kid? Swear to God, that's what I said. So, you just don't really necessarily ever feel like you have gotten to where you're going. And that's just the honest truth. So. Yeah, I'm doing it. And it's funny because I kind of have been saying like, oh, I got roped in, but and a friend said to me like, oh, but do you want to do it? It's a volunteer opportunity. Like you don't ever like really, really want to do it, but it's meaningful to me. So I care about this organization. I think they do really good work. I like the other people on the board. And it's, being in this position on the board is like networking and another kind of little check by my name on my resume, so to speak. But it's an opportunity to spend time with good, smart people. All of the other people on the executive committee are in finance, and that is a huge weakness for me, like budgets and finance. I'm a creative writer. So I'm looking at it as an opportunity to give back and also learn something and be around smart people. So they haven't, this was like around the ask, like, will you do it if we ask you? So they still have to ask me and I have to say yes, but when they ask, yes, I'm going to say yes and maybe regret it a little bit, but.
Any other questions? So I have one for you. And, listening to your story, you've been in like sort of the full spectrum from traditional business to the nonprofit, right? Most of the students here today are in a social entrepreneurship class, which I categorize somewhere in the middle. Mm-hmm. But can you talk about how you see social entrepreneurship, the future of social entrepreneurship?
In terms of
where businesses are going.
Yeah.
And you alluded a little to it when you were talking about nonprofits need to make money, need to pay people because they're doing the good work.
Yeah. So I'm a voluntold ambassador now for the Business Council of Westchester, the county chamber, and new people join and they're assigned an ambassador to like help them get acclimated to their membership. And every new person who joins that's assigned to me, I say, okay, what nonprofits are you involved in? And if they say none, I'm like, you gotta fix that right now. So I know very few people who are not deeply embedded in the nonprofit community, even as a for-profit. And I see like that's a trend that's definitely increased over the last number of years. Like 20 years ago, it was something like, oh, you do something with a nonprofit. Now it's like, you don't do anything with a nonprofit. So I definitely see that they are becoming more and more enmeshed, and that people have expectations of businesses that you will be doing some social good with whatever product or service you create and with the profits of that product or service. So, it's definitely, we are all, all kind of victims of public opinion to some extent, but I think it's a good thing. I think that most of the world is holding most of the rest of the world to a high expectation. So thinking about not what can I get out of the business I'm starting, but what can I give and what can I provide. So when you're going out to solve a problem, is that problem a social problem, or how critical is it? Like, how does it make people's lives better? Does that answer your question?
I mean, like, sorry, in my opinion, I also think, every business have to have that social component.
Yes.
Right? Because you're being judged not just by the product you're putting out there,
Absolutely.
but sort of what is that social element.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, you have to have a page about giving back,
Right.
and yes.
And it shouldn't just be bluff, right? Because sometimes people just have bluff, kind of like, oh, I'm just going to paste it there because,
Right.
They're asking. But, you have to see it because people are consumers, smart consumers.
And your
Right.
employees. I mean, if you're going out to look for a job, and everybody I know is having trouble hiring, for profits and nonprofits. It is definitely a job seekers market. They come to you, they want to know that too. Okay, are you doing like team days where we're going to go and build a house together? Like, are you giving back? Is your office green? Are you making everybody get rid of their, paper cup or their plastic whatever and use a reusable water bottle? Your staff, starting with your staff, will have expectations of you, and absolutely consumers have expectations. And when it comes down to making a choice, so my insurance client is green business certified, and it's prominent on the homepage of the website because you can get insurance from anywhere. Like, there are however many insurance companies, and there are tons of brokers that work with those same companies. So why are you going to choose this broker over that one? Because you like her, because you trust her, because she gives good advice, because she's a good person. Oh, her whole office is green. She went through this whole certification process to make sure that her office is not damaging the environment. That's pretty cool. These two people, other than that, provide exactly the same service. I'm going to go there. So it helps your business, and I think it also helps us to hold each other to a standard when we're all doing it. Everyone else, when we're doing something good, other people feel obligated to do that too. But I would say, I definitely am someone who goes to a website and, thinks about a company or an organization or whatever, like what is their impact? So if it's a business and it uses animals in any way, if I'm traveling and like, oh, they do horseback riding, I'm going on there, I want to see a thing, how are the horses treated, whatever it is. When you are so nonprofits do make a profit a lot of years. They make more money than they spend. So that money sometimes will get invested so it can grow and go back into program. Those nonprofits are only investing their money in businesses that meet certain corporate social responsibility requirements. So there are also grants for profits. People who could fund you, they may only want to fund you or help you or do business with you if you are meeting corporate social responsibility, requirements, or doing something that shows that you are responsible, either giving back, protecting the environment, things like that. It's critical.
Okay. Well, thank you. So could I get a round of applause for Hillary